Hello, everybody out there, and welcome back to another Let's Talk But No Politics Okay presents this week in History Review. I like doing these, I really do. A lot of fun to take a look back on what happened in the week of pop culture. Go into the past, try and relive some old nostalgic memories out of things that happened. And that's one amazing thing with the internet is you can find these things, uh, do everything you can do, and make them and check them out. Back in the day, you would have to go to a library, look through things and everything else. And it was one of the things that I was talking about recording a episode with Chris Chavez of History Creeps for Let's Talk But No Politics Okay. And we were talking about first big news stories that should be out at the end of December if you want to check that out. But it was just the rapid availability that we have to this information. And to think back at how long ago it happened is pretty amazing. But without further ado, I forgot to introduce myself. If this is the first time listening, I am your host, Andrew Lenz, and I host Let's Talk But No Politics Okay. I will get more into my podcast as I do a video for this every week for YouTube. I also am I'm on two networks, but I will get more into that at the end of this podcast. So without further ado, you probably don't want to hear my rambling. You want to know what happened. You want to know what happened for the week of November 9th through the 15th in pop culture history. Well, as always, we have our lovely TV. Let's see. Ooh, November 9th, 1997, the Montreal screw job happened. This is a pivotal point, even if the history of wrestling. There's been many times where the business has been exposed. What was his name? The Continental Lover did it with, he was called the Continental Lover, Buddy something. He did it with John Stossel because he wanted wrestling to unionize. There's been tons of stuff where they tried to expose the business and the art of kayfabe. And if anybody knows what kayfabe is, that is what kind of the wrestling term for fiction. I am not a wrestler. I would say I'm more of a fan now of the history of wrestling. I've learned wrestling terms. I have friends that were and are still pro wrestlers. So I hear the terms all the time of kayfabe, heel, babyface, all that stuff. So this pretty much right here is broke what they call the kayfabe is the art of storytelling in wrestling and making the audience believe that everything is real and everything else. And Bret Hart, not to get too much into it, Bret Hart was I'll say it, WWF champion, because that's what it was called then, WWF champion at the time. And he was leaving for WCW. If you want to learn more about this, Jim Cornette does a great thing. There's a dark side of the ring about it on Vice. And you can also check out Bret Hart's Wrestling with Shadows. All cover this very, very well. So he was supposed to be going to WCW, another wrestling company. He didn't want to drop the belt in Montreal, but Vince McMahon was everybody knows him, even if you I think even if you don't really watch wrestling. Uh was afraid that he was going to take the belt to WCW, kind of like what Ric Flair did to the WCW belt in the early 90s. And then you had Medusa drop in the WWF women's belt on an episode of Nitro, which was a WCW show. So Jim Cornette says that he came up with the plan to many people. Okay. And they decided that they were going to just take the belt from Brett in Montreal. They were going to do this whole plan and take it away. Bret Hart was mad. He went on talk shows and talked about it and everything else. And this is probably, I don't want Jim Cornette to come after me or anything like that. I would say probably top 5 or 10 in wrestling history, where this story is amazing. Even if you're not a wrestling fan and you like a good story, please go look up the Montreal Screwjob. It is absolutely amazing. Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, so much who knew what, who didn't know what, who pulled the trigger on this to happen. Crazy. So many parties involved. So many parties. So check that out. So November 9th, 1997, the Montreal Screwjob happened. I'll do this is what Bret did at the end of it because he was going to WCW. I'm just trying to make the WCW logo. WCW no longer exists, so it's kind of funny. Let's go on to November 10th. November 10th, 1969, Sesame Street premieres on PBS. This is a much lighter topic. This is the last one because who didn't love Sesame Street as a kid? Big Bird, Snuffleupagus, Cookie Monster, The Count, even the actual humans, Gordon, Luis, Gloria. Who was Luis? I can't remember all of them. Bob. I remember there was just a Bob, and I think he was married to the Duff Lady. And then you had Barkley the dog, and oh my goodness, so many. Telly, um, Grover, so many great memories watching Sesame Street, and they would have celebrities on there. I remember watching R2D2 and C3PO on Sesame Street, and you learn so much. The pinball 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I mean, just so many great memories on there. The two-headed monsters, the Kermit the Frog with the late breaking news and the aliens. Oscar the Grouch. Like, how did I forget Oscar the Grouch? It was always amazing when they showed the garbage man carrying Oscar the Grouch because it was something that you didn't see. He always just stood there and he was at the trash can. And later characters like Elmo and I think Abby Cadabby were one. Those were ones that I did not grow up with, but I have smaller cousins and they grew up with them. So I mean, this is pretty much. I would have to say top 5 children's show. I'm gonna be nice because there's a lot of people out there that are like, hey, what about Captain Kangaroo? What about Mr. Rogers? What about this guy? What about that guy? Excuse me, but this is probably definitely top 5, if not number one, in children's shows of all time and what they meant to everybody. This was another great show. Uh, it's funny though. I'm gonna go a little dark here. Gonna go a little dark. It's funny because if you've ever watched the HBO Max documentary, Class Action, Class Action Park, and it's a documentary on Action Park and also a little bit more of the way people grew up in the 80s and the early 90s where it was just very free as kids. You just went and you did stuff. There was no cell phones. Your parents couldn't call you uh, as well. But I noticed something while watching it. Excuse me again. That there was this ride in Action Park called the Alpine Slide, and they showed it. And I said, I know that. I know that slide. I've seen it for many years. It turns out that it was at the end of Sesame Street. There was people sliding down this Alpine slide at the end of Sesame Street. I did the research. I went on YouTube and I looked at it, and there they are. So that's just how crazy the times were. If we want to go that far as well, that Sesame Street was like, "Hey, here's a ride. I know people have died on it, but we're going to put it at the end because it looks like a fun ride. It really does." So that's the fun thing about Sesame Street is there's so many, and the theme song it gets you going. You love it. It was the first time I seen a Volkswagen Beetle was Sesame Street. The characters, they just stay with you. Oh, I forgot. How did I forget Bert and Ernie? And Bert and Ernie were great because I have an older brother and he is a lot like Bert, and I'm a little bit more like Ernie. So it was always great to have that. So that was Sesame Street was awesome. I got others. I got other graphics to get to. I got other things I got to talk about. So November 10th, 1969, Sesame Street premieres on PBS. So here we go. November 11th, 1980, Two Clothes for Comfort premieres on ABC. I've maybe only caught a handful of these shows, but I do believe this is an iconic show. I wouldn't say it's like 10 or anything crazy like that, but it's a very iconic show. 10 Nights, awesome. He was in Caddyshack and Mary Tyler Moore. Sometimes I get Mary Tyler Moore and that girl mixed up. Yes, I know I shouldn't know what those shows are, but I like the older TV even growing up. But this is one I only caught a couple of times. Monroe is an iconic character, I believe. And to come to find out when, looking up stuff, that this character wasn't even supposed to last that long. So he's in one of those molds, Jim J. Bullock, to have a character that just hit it, much like Mimi from the Drew Carey show. Trying to think who else there was there. I know there, but there's a couple where they were like, Andy from Parks and Recreation wasn't even supposed to be on that long. But these are characters that just hit it with the audience, and they're like, we got to get them on. We got to get them on. We got to get them going. These are gonna guys that are gonna make the show, and you always got to have that one character that makes the show. He can't. He's not always gonna be the star, but he's gonna be somebody that is going to make the show, and that is what I believe you got out of the character Monroe on Too Close to Comfort, which on November 11th, 1980, premiered on ABC. Here we go. I think we only got a couple more. Only a couple more. Let's go. Okay. November 12th, 1991, Nikki and Alex are born on the 100th episode, Full House. Full House is up there. Top three TGIF. If you listen to my podcast that I did with Johnny Townsend from other podcasts like Retro Pop, History Creeps, Retro Bliss, he does a lot. Johnny Horde's movie reviews, he does a lot. But we did a nice little talk where he's more of a fan of Family Matters, and I'm more of a fan of Full House. I like Family Matters. I just like Full House a little bit more. And he likes Full House. He just likes Family Matters a little bit more. And that's a great episode in the archive. If you want to go check that out, because we have a really great discussion on why we like each one, who mold do we fit, and everything else. But this is pretty iconic that the twins are born. They added more characters. They kind of added to that baby Michelle vibe where you kind of need the baby, and they got older and they would have their parts as well. So that's where this comes in, is just iconic. But Full House is amazing. Uncle Jesse, Joey, all those guys as well. And whoever thought, if you watch Full House from the beginning, that Uncle Jesse would settle down and have some kids. I know I didn't, because Uncle Jesse was a cool rock and roll guy. But here he is with Aunt Becky, who I believe is from like Nebraska in the show. I'm not going to get into any other Lori Loughlin. I'm talking about the character Rebecca Dallison in the show. So, yeah, I think she's from Nebraska in the show or something like that. Some Midwest. And here she is. She's going to marry Jesse Kasopoulos, this bad boy. And then they ended up having kids together. And then they moved into the attic. But if you look upon further review of the house, it's hard to make out where there would be an attic. Some people have said that. I know I've questioned it since I've heard this. Is there an attic to that house? And how did they even live there? So the other crazy thing is you got people living in your attic and your basement. All over that house. All in that house. That's crazy. But Full House, the 100th episode, always huge. And it went on to go on for many more years as well. I love Full House. Full House is amazing. It is great. It is 100% amazing. But on November 12th, 1991 was the 100th episode of Full House, and Nikki and Alex were born. Ooh, we are doing good here. We are doing good. Let's keep this rolling. November 13th, 1940, Disney's Fantasia is released. I was not around for the premiere, as you can tell, but Fantasia is something that is very masterful. I know what people would probably be like, "Oh man, if you do this or you do that with it," or and you know what I'm getting the gist at. I'm trying to keep this as PG or PG as possible. That it's even better. But even as a kid, it didn't have words. It was just this great classical music and Mickey Mouse with the wizard hat. It's probably the most iconic out of all of it as well, where he's getting the mops to clean and everything else, and he's gonna clean up because he has the power of this wizard hat, but then it goes ultimately wrong and everything else. It's a very visual masterpiece as long as with the music. I love things that I love a good movie with words and everything else, but sometimes good silent film or something like this with no words is awesome. It's awesome. And I didn't care. I remember not caring as a kid. I remember not caring today that there are no words to it. It's just all free. It's just the music, the beats, the tempos. That's your words. The visual, that's your words as well. It is quite amazing that this happens throughout the whole entire thing. And Walt Disney took the liberty of doing this, and whoever else created this as well, to show. I think it shows what you can do, and you don't always need the spoken word. Actions, as they say, speak louder than words. November 13th, 1940, Disney's Fantasia is released. Let's go. We got two more. Two more. Two more. That's sad. It's gonna be sad. November 14th, 1988, Murphy Brown premieres on CBS. Murphy Brown, great show. I have an aunt. I always relate Murphy Brown with my aunt just because the way the two characters are, the character is, and the way that my aunt is as well. And a great, it's a great show. I know they try to bring it back, but you can't bring back shows. Once they're gone, they're gone. I think they run their course. I mean, that's one of the things I wanted to definitely talk about when I was looking at this is once a show runs its course and it does its final episode, let it go, big network. Let it go. I mean, I love Seinfeld. I wouldn't mind seeing a Seinfeld episode, but will it be the same? Can you capture that magic that it captured years ago? And I never watched the Murphy Brown um, reboot. I wouldn't even say reboot. Uh, re- revival. Would revival be it? But this was one that had to go. That just needed to be alone. Just let it go. Let it go. I remember the big controversy with Murphy Brown. So Candace Bergen, who starred as Murphy Brown, and Dan Quayle, over her having a child on TV and her being a single mother. And that was something that was huge in my head because who in my head at that point I was thinking who really cared, but I'm not trying to get into that too much. It was just this something that I remembered bringing it through. And it was I remember when she had her child, kid's name was Avery. And the only reason why I remember that is because of Steve Avery, the Atlanta Braves pitcher. But it was such a good show. It was a news show. She was this high powered kind of Barbara Walters news anchor, and everybody fits so well on the show as well. So I gotta say, Murphy Brown is amazing. If you've never watched Murphy Brown, please go and check it out. It is awesome. And November 14th, 1988, Murphy Brown premieres on CBS. CBS. Just love saying that. All right. Here we go. Our final one for November 15th. November 15th, 1986, the Beastie Boys release License to Ill, their debut album, which went on to become the first rap album on the first number one rap album on the Billboard charts. The Beastie Boys. Ooh, Beastie Boys are amazing. To this day, I can still listen to the Beastie Boys. Matter of fact, I was listening to the Beastie Boys before I started recording this. That's how much the Beastie Boys are, how great they are. They are amazing. They are awesome. Mike D, Ad Rock, MCA. Who doesn't like them? Paul Revere. License to Ill was amazing. My brother had the tape. We listened to Paul Revere constantly on a loop. All the other ones, Sabotage. So what you want? We had the older stuff when they were more of a band where they were playing like stuff like A Grade on Mojo. They are the iconic, very iconic rap group because they're like these Jewish kids from New York and they broke it. I mean, there was what other rap group was high up? I mean, it might get argued with here, but the only one I could think of is Run DMC at this point. Beastie Boys and Run DMC were both absolutely amazing. But the Beastie Boys, just everything. Girls, Hey Ladies, Girls with Motley Crue. Sorry. I was trying to think I was going with Hey Ladies. Just hit after hit after hit. Amazing group. Amazing group. Because to this day, we have to owe them our right to party because they fought for our right to party. But definitely remember playing License to Ill with the wonderful airplane on the back and everything else. Cassette tape, cassette. We didn't have vinyl. I think we were phasing out of vinyl in our house at that point, and we were going cassette. And that's the Beastie Boys, absolutely amazing. When they came out with Intergalactic, that was huge. Body Moving. I can name so many songs by them because they could get you going. They were in Crush Groove, another big hip hop, 80s hip hop movie as well. And for them to be in there, up there with the likes of LL Cool J and the Fat Boys and Run DMC, and that movie is great. Rick Rubin. There's so many people that surround this. Beastie Boys are great. I don't know one person that doesn't like the Beastie Boys, and that is my wife. I will not hold that against her. Not hold it against her at all. So, November 15th, 1986, License to Ill debuts, and then it ends up going to be the number one rap album on the Billboard charts. So that is the end of the show. And like I said, you can catch Let's Talk But No Politics every Sunday. How do you find those episodes other than this week? Or Let's Talk But No Politics presents This Week in Pop Culture History review. Well, you can go catch those episodes on the BICP Radio Network. That's BICBP-radionetwork.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We also get all of our stuff done through the podcast precinct. Consistency, creativity, and culture. That's what they preach. That's what they do. Hashtag don't hate, create. So check out those episodes. You could check out the history review video on YouTube. I post every Monday or Tuesday with this. And you can also, if you want to listen to it, check out new episodes of the history review on the Helium Radio Network every Friday at 7 p.m. Please go follow us on Facebook. Let's talk, but no politics. Okay. We are also on Instagram. Like I said, we also have YouTube. I started playing some retro games as well. And for the other podcasts I do, the 2 Point Conversation, I posted some Tecmo Super Bowl videos. So if you like old school Tecmo Super Bowl, that is great as well. So please go post those, go check those out as I post them. And I also play some other retro games. And like I said, new episodes every Sunday. You go to the BICP-radio, no, BICP-radio.com. Look it up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We just did an episode where I talked to Daryl Smith, who is an admin of the 80s, 90s memories. Went over some nice memories, and he also has a great childhood of splitting time between here and Scotland as well. So that is awesome to hear those stories. Check out some older ones. This Sunday we got coming up is my good friend Joe Kasha. We talk some Little League memories because we played Little League together. And we also have some fun talking about, you know, stuff that we used to do as a kid because not only did we play Little League together, but we were pretty good friends at that point as well. So please go check that out. Go support. And good morning, afternoon,